Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining Ingram Micro, NBN, and Switch Connect for another webinar. We're going to wait about another 1 minute before we begin the session officially. My name is Tasha Sultanovic, and I'm the Ingram Micro Cloud Onboarding Manager. I'm going to just make sure everyone can hear me. So we're going to put a little message in the message box. So if there's any issues with sound, please type us a message back. And then I will begin the official webinar in about 60 seconds. I think we're about ready to begin. Thank you for joining us, everyone. My name is Tasha Sultanovic, and I'm the Ingram Micro Cloud Onboarding Vendor Manager for the Cloud Marketplace. And today we're having a webinar that is co-hosted by NBN and Switch Connect. From NBN, we have Craig Bovaird, the National ICT Channel Manager for Business NBN. And from Switch Connect, we have the Global CEO, Rowan Milne. To begin, we have Craig, and then I believe Craig will then pass to Rowan. And at the end, we'll take all of your questions. So please type them into the chat box, and we'll collate them and answer them at the end. Craig.
Thank you, Tash. And welcome everyone, and thank you for spending time with us this afternoon. As said, my name is Craig Bovaird. I'm the National ICT Channel Manager for Business NBN. And today we just wanted to talk a little bit more around the business grade services that we have available to NBN that enable you to power things like voice through Microsoft Teams. And then I'm going to hand across to Rowan a little bit later to take us through how that plays into the direct routing with Microsoft Teams. So within the Business NBN program, I'm part of our ICT Channel Program, and if you're not quite aware of what we've been doing for the last kind of 12 months in this space, feel free to go onto the website. Under the business banner on the NBN website, you'll see the ICT Channel Program, and you'll be able to register with us. We've been running through a series of programs to educate our IT channel partners around the NBN, how it fits together from a commercial structure, as well as from a technical structure as well, with the different technologies that we have connecting into small business. We've got a certification program within there, so you and your team can get certified across the technologies that we're offering, as well as then going through and doing what we call a whole of business accreditation. And that unlocks our Business NBN accredited advisor logo that you can see there on the screen, as well as opening up our pre-sales, post-sales, and through channel partner marketing support as well. So we're here to help channel partners educate, enable you to go out and have the conversations with your small business partners, and then how to plan migrating them across, and then obviously how you can take advantage of the NBN to digitize their business and get them onto things like Microsoft Teams, and then really importantly, help look at moving their voice systems across as well. One of the key things that we've been talking about through our channel partners is the disconnection dates that are rolling out through things like ISDN, Ethernet over copper, and the PSTN network as well. So as we roll out the NBN, as areas get turned on, the disconnection clock starts ticking as well. So if you've got customers that have already moved across to the NBN but haven't looked at moving their voice across, or things like their alarms as well, or anything to do with callback monitoring, anything that's sitting on the old copper network is eventually going to get disconnected. So we're really encouraging you to go out and talk to all your customers about moving their voice systems across onto the NBN, whether that's moving on to SIP trunks or over the top, or obviously go into things like Microsoft Teams. Now, a big cutoff date is looming up in September, where the disconnection of ISDN services will start happening. That will kick off in September, as I said, but it will roll out depending on when your customer has gone live in their area. But of course, it takes time to move these services across, takes time to do number porting, takes time to move them onto new systems. So I really encourage you, if you haven't already, join up onto the ICT Channel Program. Take advantage of our pre-sales and post-sales team to start planning those migrations for your customers. And we can talk to you things around what speeds and feeds they're going to get, depending on the technology, if they need to upgrade technologies, and if they're larger clients, even things like moving them across to our new enterprise Ethernet product. But we really encourage you to start that conversation now, as we've already seen some end customers where they've had their phones, FPOS machines disconnected because they haven't planned and made that move already. Now, to back that up, we've just had a recent announcement of a slew of new business grade services, and you'll start to see a lot more of these business grade services out in the market over the coming months as our internet and service providers take up the new products. But as I said, we've got our new enterprise Ethernet product that rolled out at the end of last year. This is our point-to-point fiber network, allowing businesses to go up to a gig by gig synchronous on there. We've also got what our business NBN fiber expansion program has just started to roll out as well. So this is where we've looked at business intensive areas like business parks or smaller metro CBDs and started to build out fiber to there proactively. Now, as we complete those areas, we're then going out to our NBN ICT accredited partners and letting them know that the businesses there are now eligible to move across to fiber. A really good way of being able to get into the door, find new customers, and talk to them about moving their services across onto the FTTP network. Now, behind that as well, we also have what we call our Business Operations Center, and that allows us to do dedicated case management on planning those transitions, also doing things like premium appointments. So if we need to have an NBN technician there before or after hours, or we need to do coordinated appointments so that we can have a technician on site at the same time as you and your team, as well as their selected RSP as well. The next thing that will start rolling out is what we call our business NBN bundles. Now, this is a new pricing structure that we've just released to our RSPs, and that enables some of the business grade services that we'll be talking about today, like Traffic Class 2, to be suit and best fit for purpose inside that SMB market. Up until now, it's been something that's been sitting more in the enterprise end, but as you'll see over the coming months, you'll see a lot more built for SMB in that space. On the side of that, as well as our new enhanced service level agreements built into that. So that allows you to have enhanced SLAs around the connectivity of the NBN network. So if there was anything to happen, you can have an NBN technician on your customer's site in a 12-hour delay, as opposed to maybe 3 or 4 days if they're still sitting on a residential connection. Also through our team, because we've got the ability to go into our Business Operations Center and escalate any issues, you as a partner, as part of our program, can escalate any issues through the RSP as well as through our team to be able to get onto that improved connection and resolution process as well. So it was just lightly touching on some of those new services that we've got out. We are going to do a webinar a little bit later here at Ingram, diving more into the program and more around some of those business grade services. But I just wanted to touch on those so you're aware as we start to talk around the Microsoft Teams and the direct routing piece on the traffic class 2, you have an idea of where you can reach out to find more information. So why are we here today? Obviously, we've been working with the Ingram Micro team and Microsoft talking around that digitization of small business. Now, when we start talking around small business, obviously one of the key factors in there outside of standard internet connectivity is voice. And as I just said, as we roll out the network, as they come online, we're also disconnecting those copper services. And that includes the PSTN network as well. Now, that doesn't affect all areas when we start looking at some of the rural areas with satellite and fixed wireless. But anyone inside the FTTX network will start to be getting disconnected. So Microsoft Teams presents a huge opportunity to go and talk to your customers and talk about voice and integrating that into their business. Obviously, as we start to roll out the network, we've seen more and more businesses. In fact, we're seeing about 20,000 businesses connect to the NBN network each month. So we've got a large amount of opportunity to go out and talk around not just that connectivity piece, but also around digitizing their voice network. So how do we do that? So when we start talking around NBN, out in the market, most people just see the NBN as a residential service and don't really look into the network in terms of the options that they have around the various traffic classes that we have. So we actually offer 3 different traffic classes through the NBN. You'll see there that we've got traffic class 1, traffic class 2, and traffic class 4. Traffic class 1, we tend to really only see in single site solutions. So as we roll out the standard network, each and every device actually comes with 2 ports on the back end. One is for data and one is for voice. And so in those single site applications, that's normally a traffic class 1. What I wanted to touch on today was around our traffic class 2 service. So this is our quasi-enabled low latency service that obviously allows you to run multiple voice lines as well as things like VPNs, video conferencing on there as well. And then we have traffic class 4, which is what we refer to as our residential grade service, and that's just your standard internet data. Now, typically, this is what we see actually getting rolled out to business as a standard. And unfortunately, with some providers, they're just putting the word business in front of their NBN plans, and it's actually still just running on a traffic class 4 service. When we start talking around traffic class 2, you really do need to talk to either providers that you're aligned with or the customer provider and ask them around what traffic classes they offer within that service. And that's something that Ron will be able to talk to a little bit more in detail a little bit later. So when we start talking about the traffic classes available through the phone and internet service providers, this is how they are able to prioritize data across our network as well as their own network. So traffic class 2 actually sits inside that traffic class 4 envelope. So as you can see there, all we're really doing is taking our standard service and running our own quality of service over the top of that, allowing to then build in that quasi low latency service. So even though we're talking about 3 distinct traffic classes, it's all sitting within the same service. Now that allows yourself and the RSPs flexibility around directing traffic through those different classes depending on what the requirements of the customer is. Again, it's not something that you typically see when looking at plans on the various websites with our RSPs. It's really something that you need to sit down with your business customers, start having that application conversation with them, and then start talking to the RSPs around what traffic classes they're offering in their plans. So then you can help divvy up the applications through to those different classes. So as we're talking, when we're talking to customers, obviously we're not really going to be talking around traffic classes and low latency and quads. We're going to be talking to them about their business and their applications that they have inside their business. So here, just as an example, at the top, we're running a video conference service in there. Anything that's kind of real-time application, things like CRM, really important, SharePoint, anywhere they need real-time applications, then we're talking about that kind of traffic class 2. In the middle there, look, we're talking about standard web browsing, watching YouTube during lunch, etc. And then obviously you've got your voice down the bottom there as well. And again, voice for a small business is really, really key. So we're really having to look at how we can provide a top quality service for customers across there. Because obviously, as we roll out the NBN, we transition people across, we're no longer talking about disparate services. Everything now is going to be running down that IP network. So as we start looking at the NBN network and looking at those different applications, as you can see there, we have the various applications, but they're all sharing that same infrastructure. All three of those traffic classes are running down that same one connection, whether that's FTTN or FTTB, and then going on to the network. So unless we're really looking at utilizing those different traffic classes, all the data is just going to get lumped into one. And what does that mean? Well, as we start to hit, especially with traffic class 4, the requirements are starting to drop out. You can see the packet loss. If we're not determining which applications are going down what traffic classes, and those packets start dropping, whether that's during peak times, etc., we can't control the prioritization in there, which means we lose degradation in terms of real-time applications like voice, and that's when we start to get jitter and latency effects in there. And overall, we're providing a substandard experience for the customer. So what does that mean for web browsing and downloading? It probably doesn't affect the business that much if it's taking an extra 12 seconds for an email to pop into the box, or they're watching YouTube and there's a little bit of jitter in that. But when we start looking at things like voice, again, voice requires low latency, high bandwidth. We need to make sure that those packets are getting prioritized and arriving on time so we don't get any lack of transmission in there as well. And this is where we start looking at things like traffic class 2, because we can start prioritizing it down there on that quasi-enabled service as opposed to letting it run on the traffic class 4, which is then just the best effort in there. So as you can see, if we start now looking at those same applications, but we start looking at prioritizing those applications down the different traffic classes, you'll see now that we're guaranteeing that traffic class 2 going through the high utilization, the traffic class 1 in there as well, high utilization, and traffic class 4 is the only one that's really being affected. And again, this requires a conversation between yourself and with the customer around what are those priority applications. And again, it's not always just voice. We start talking around things like video collaboration, around SharePoint, CRM, all those real-time applications. We need to have a conversation earlier at the start of the conversation as opposed to popping them on to the NBN, finding out that the plan's not quite right for them because they've bought it off a retail provider and not a business NBN provider. Again, we need to have the application conversation now before we even go and turn on the NBN for these guys. So if we take a quick dive into traffic class 2, and what does that mean from a technical perspective? So traffic class 2 is our wholesale symmetrical committed information rate service. So again, we've got the ability to provide symmetrical up and down speeds, starting from 5 by 5 megabits, all the way up to 1 gigabit by 1 gigabit on our enterprise Ethernet product. Again, traffic class 2 is committed bandwidth, so that gives us our quads and our low latency over the top of our standard service. And by comparison, where traffic class 4, i.e. our residential performance network, is best efforts, we're able to guarantee that committed information rate on the traffic class 2. If we go down to the bottom of the screen there and we start looking at some of those delay, low latency statistics down there. So you can see traffic class 2 on fibre to the premise, you'll see is under 6 milliseconds one way, under 10 milliseconds variation on the frame delay, and less than 0.1% in terms of frame loss. So these are the types of low latency quads that we're getting down to on the traffic class 2. Now, the availability of traffic class 2 is dependent upon the type of technology that the customer is geared to move across for. So you'll see across there on FTTP, we can go all the way from 5 by 5 up to 100 by 100. On FTTN, on fibre to the node, typically we can get up to speeds on 20 by 20, and that goes for fibre to the curb and fibre to the basement as well. Now, obviously, with fibre to the node, it does depend on the speeds that they're able to get, and that obviously depends on the existing copper network that they have as well. One thing that I will call out, and you'll see there on the HFC network, we can't currently offer TC2. However, in the upgrade of the HFC network for later this year, we are looking to be able to do TC2 5 by 5 and eventually 10 by 10 of the HFC network. And then on wireless and satellite, we don't have TC2 services available. However, with satellite, later this year, we will be launching our business satellite services where we will have a similar TC2 type product on there. Now, the big call out from here is this is where it really, I guess, comes down to having that conversation with your partner sooner rather than later and understanding what technology they're going to get slated for when moving across to the NBN and whether or not that's going to be fit for purpose. And then we can also have the conversation about upgrading them to fibre to the premise or onto their enterprise Ethernet product. But again, planning that move sooner rather than later, understanding what the technology they're going to move on, that's going to dictate speeds and feeds, and that's going to dictate what level of traffic class 2 we can supply them. Now, we do have a ton more information around what those different traffic classes are. You'll see there just a couple of highlights of the fact sheets that we have available. These are available through our portal. So if you haven't already signed up to the ICT Channel Program, head on to the NBN business site, log on to the ICT Channel Program, register. We'll give you a password to start the training, and then you'll have access to the fact sheets here, as well as to our pre-sales team that can help you plan that migration for your customers and then talk to you around what those traffic classes will mean depending on the applications that your customers have. The last thing that I wanted to highlight is just going back to when we start talking about traffic class 2, unfortunately we don't see a lot of that obviously put out in the various resellers' information on their portals. They may talk about business NBN, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they offer TC2. So it's really important that you have that conversation with that provider and start talking around whether or not they can supply those services, which, as it happens, is a really good segue for me to hand across to Rowan to talk to you around the services that Switch Connect can supply around direct routing and around the NBN connectivity options that they offer. Now, we will be taking questions at the end, but please note you can see the website there. You've got access to the email or give us a call on 1300 639 677. And with that, I'm going to hand you across to Rowan. Rowan, are you there?
I am, Craig. Thank you very much. See if I can click the button.
I can see it.
Can you just... Okay, there we go. Look. Go. Okay. Hi guys, thank you for joining today. Thanks Craig for giving us a wonderful overview on NBN. So today we just want to cover off on the direct routing piece of that, obviously the overlay over the top of the new NBN business plans. So we're just going to go a bit high level over the direct routing, and we'll jump into a bit of how as an MSP you can drive that revenue in for your business. Is the biggest question I get asked on pretty much a daily basis as we're out talking to partners. So just a bit of an overview on how the market is changing and where we see the business of traditional voice and having phone systems is we're now seeing with the rise of global businesses and the rise of how the business is changing and how they deal with internally, but also as their clients. We're seeing as being a lot more team-based collaborative. Teams are being a lot smaller and a lot more dispersed. So you'll have in most businesses, you'll have where you traditionally had a sales team in Brisbane and you might have had 5 staff. Now you have 1 or 2, but they won't be based in the same office. They'll be based in different locations. So everyone's logging in from different places at different times in different states. As we all know, the old daylight saving issue with the east coast of Australia. I think lucky it's finally finished. We're all on the same time zone now. It makes life a lot easier. But with all these dispersed teams becoming up now, we're just seeing a lot more diversity in where people want to work and how they want to work. But everyone still wants to collaborate and being able to talk to each other in real time and work on documents together. And that's really where the Microsoft Teams product comes into its own over your traditional unified comms apps that, allows you to screen share, allows you to chat, but it's not contextualized and integrating to the full suite of Office 365. And really on a global basis, and this is probably even on locally to the Australian market, that more and more workers are all working remotely now. And by 2020, we're really seeing a massive big drive in that. And then also the diversity of generations that work together. Obviously, we've got the old silver foxes of the industries who are around, and then we've got the Gen Ys and Gen Zs, I think they call the latest generation coming through that love on technologies and apps and collaboration. But now we're really seeing that push across the whole organization, which is a massive shift that we haven't seen in our industry in any time recently. As I said before, it really comes into I want to work on where I want to work and on what device I want to work. Most of the large enterprises and mid-markets and even small business now are all having your bring your own device type of a marketplace where it's all that app-driven economy now. So when you're talking Teams, I can do it from my Windows device, whether that's a Service or my Lenovo or my HP, or in our case, we're a fairly big Apple shop. Most of our guys use Macs, so whether that's from my Mac, if it's my iPhone or my Android device or my iPad or my Galaxy tablet, or even if it's from a web browser, I can really jump in and collaborate and be part of the team wherever I am, no matter what device I'm using, which is really bringing down those barriers across an organization where typically if you're using certain video conferencing platforms would only work on certain devices. So it really opens up to using any sort of platform that you really wish to make the staff member more productive. This is a great chart that we've pulled out, and this is actual forecast for 2019. And as you can see in here, if you look at our traditional voice platform, so we start off with, as in all our industries, we love to come up with acronyms and everything, and telco is no different. So if we start off, I'll try and step you through these acronyms here. So we got VAS as a service. So this is voice as a service. So this is where a lot of vendors first started in looking at like your hosted PBX type services. We then are generated to a bit further, and then we ended up in calling platforms as a service. So we ended up moving everything to the cloud. So first it was like SIP trunking and maybe a little bit of hosted, but then it's integrating hosted and that together. So we've got CPaaS as a service collaboration platform. And then we've got UCaaS, which is the rise of unified communications. We all wanted a soft phone. We started becoming mobile. So we evolved into the UCaaS, which is unified comms as a service. And then obviously we dragged along all those contact centers and call centers. So that's CC as a service. So you really see where the rise of those markets are. But then you go and look at something like Microsoft Teams, and that falls not in like it can accomplish your calling platform, your video conferencing, your unified comms. It kind of collaborates all three of those platforms together, and we get into these teamwork applications. So we all know the market leader in this when it first came to market was Slack. Slack was the first to market and had a massive share in this. And then Microsoft came out, everyone had 365 and just boom, overnight push Teams. And you just see the evolution of that and the integration of that across a business, and especially for yourselves being MSPs and rolling that out to your customers, the ability and the streamlineness, the consultancy that you can provide to your customers to help them streamline and get the most out of their business is just at a level unseen before in our industry. We've been doing voice for over 10 years now. We just haven't seen such a product that customers literally ring partners and go, I want this and I don't care the cost, because they just see the value in which it brings to business. Voice has been one of those things, I've got to deal with it, but it's a cost I don't really want to deal with. But people are now seeing the value of that collaboration experience and they just want it. I've never seen any time in our industry where you literally have customers that ring you and go, send me an application form. No, I don't want a proposal, just send me a price to do it. It's just something you haven't seen in the industry for many, many years. So how does switching it help you do this? So we all know within our Office 365 stack, everyone's got Microsoft Teams. We'll go into the bolt-ons on how to get it up to create telephony. So where Switch Connect plugs in, we sit in the middle here. We connect your customers' Office 365 tenancy back out to their customers and to the public phone network, so that they can ring inbound, outbound, get all their high complex call flows, but use Microsoft Teams to have that single client to track everything they do in their business in that single experience. So that's really where Switch Connect plays in. And then partnering with Ingram, one of the largest CSP partners for all the managed services, in buying that is you can build that onto your bill and drive an extra recurring revenue stream for your business. Going to catch up. So where does the Microsoft Teams bit fits into the actual application stack of Microsoft? So on the left-hand side here, you've got your Microsoft Office 365 licensing, this outside box. Obviously, every license now includes Microsoft Teams by default. Microsoft has just recently, in the last 2 months, changed now that when you install Office, it will install Microsoft Teams as the default collaboration app now, not Skype for Business. So this really shows you that the investment that Microsoft's making in Microsoft Teams, and that Microsoft Teams will eventually replace Skype for Business. They'll still support Skype for Business from their large enterprise customers from an on-premise, but if it is a new implementation, the best practice is always to roll out Microsoft Teams. So from a licensing perspective and how you actually make this work, there's a bolt-on license. It's called Phone System. And that allows to basically take that Microsoft Teams client and make that the enterprise handset for you. There's also a secondary bolt-on if your customers is doing conferencing. So there's another bolt-on called audio conferencing. And then from a Switch Connect perspective, we overlay then the direct routing to basically link up that client to the public phone network and allow your customers to port their existing phone numbers and basically ring in and ring out. From a licensing perspective in Office 365, at the moment, it is an enterprise series feature. So you've got to have E-Series licensing. So if your customers have an E-Series 1 or E-Series 3 license, they'll need to buy, from the Microsoft perspective, the phone system bolt-on as a minimum to make Teams direct routing work. And then the optional audio conferencing if they want that, and then a calling plan around from Switch Connect. Now, if you've already upsold your customers, you're selling the whole stack of Microsoft with an E5 series license to your customer. The brilliance in this case is you already have a phone system bolt-on and also a conferencing bolt-on already included in your enterprise E5 series license. So it's literally, to turn it on, you've just got to enable it and then connect it up to Switch Connect's direct routing. So it's a really cheap upgrade for your customers to enable that audio component if they've already rolled out Teams and already running E5. So I will just apologise if my voice sounds a bit husky. I did actually lose my voice yesterday, so lucky I got it back for this afternoon. So I do apologise if my voice is a bit husky. One of the biggest questions we get asked by partners is, how do I make money out of this telco business? The margins aren't as high in telco as they are around hardware sales, professional services, as over the years, telco has become a race to the bottom of the barrel. So it's a very, very highly competitive industry, and as a result, there's not as much margin as other ones. But that doesn't mean you can't make significant revenue for your business if you bundle and pitch it together to the customer. So what I thought we'd go through next is just how we see and how, if you really bundle this, you can make significant revenue for your MSP business, as well as delivering extra products and services to your customers. So obviously, the first part where you make the money out of it is obviously your Office 365 licensing. Buying that through Ingram Micro, you've got your Office, your base Office 365 licensing. There's the upgrade opportunity, obviously, to upgrade them if they're only running Business Premium, to upgrade them to E-Series licensing. And then on the E-Series to then sell also the bolt-ons around conferencing and phone system. So that's the first part in where you can make that recurring monthly revenue. Obviously, the next part then becomes the telco side. So as Craig was mentioning before, we will be releasing through the Ingram Micro channel and via the Switch Connect partnership with Ingram Micro, the new NBN business plans when they get fully released in the coming weeks. So anyone who attended today, and you'll see some further emails come out as we launch those plans. So there'll be an extra recurring revenue stream for you for selling those NBN business plans through the channel, through the Switch Connect partnership. You'll be able to drive a recurring revenue on the monthly spend of them. As well as obviously then there's the Switch Connect, the direct routing piece for Microsoft. There's a recurring revenue stream through that. If any of you haven't seen the pricing around that, we're going to cover off on a bit on this, but reach out to your account manager after this and fill in one of the referral forms, and one of our team will be more than happy to talk to you to explain how that works and how you guys can add that as a profit margin to your customers. The next place in which you can then make the money out is the professional services. It's one thing just to roll it out, but it's the consultancy around Teams. Teams as a soft phone is a great product, but Teams is so much more than just a soft phone. When we're talking Skype for Business, it was purely just a soft phone with chat and a bit of video conferencing now. Now with Teams being a whole collaboration experience, it's working with your customers and how they integrate their SharePoint, integrate their OneDrive, integrate all the other third-party applications they've got to make that the single pane of glass to really manage and collaborate as a business. So there's a whole lot of consultancy that you can deliver to your customer around how to get the best value out of Teams, how to set up the policies and who can do what, and how to manage the data retention and security of that. Next, revenue in an upfront cost, then become around the training and the services as you roll out to customers. Is actually roll into their business and how to use Teams and gets the most out. So that's additional services revenue to the business. So being if you've got professional services guys or project management, all those services fit in here to the actual migration. And obviously the final component of that becomes the hardware sale. As Teams is a soft phone, Microsoft's vision of Teams, it's a soft phone only deployment. Although Microsoft doesn't reckon you need a physical handset, everyone needs a headset to use that with. So there's headset sales, and then there's also there's certified CPE hardware that you can sell as well. So there's the sale around that, and then also the underlying network architecture. Make sure that they've got switches and routers that can actually prioritize and manage this now that they're running voice all over their network. And then the final piece to wrap all this around is to wrap a managed services contract every month to manage and monitor and add moves and changes all this to your customer. So as you can see through this, it's not just around selling a couple of SIP trunks or some call user plans to the customer. There's so many other revenues to add, professional services, consultancies, and ways to touch your customer in helping them automate and streamline their business processes to help them grow their business, that they'll see you as that real super trusted advisor that you're looking at for their business moving forward. How is Team Direct Route put together? So just quickly go over this. I know we've done this in a previous webinar, but just if some of you guys haven't seen it previously, we've got two models at Switch Connect in how you can buy direct routing for Microsoft Teams. There's in essence, the Microsoft calling plan option, where you can buy a calling plan per user. So if I've got 20 users and 365, I'll have 20 calling plans and one attached per user. So that's the traditional way. Being that we've been invoiced for so many years, what we find is that a per channel model is actually a lot more easier, a lot more cost effective for your customers. So if they're migrating from a traditional phone system, say they've got 30, 40 users on a phone system, they may only have like an ISDN 10. So what that means is they'll have 10 concurrent calls they can have to the phone, to the public phone network ringing outside the business. So we've built a similar model where you can buy 10 channels to the public phone network, connect it to their Office 365 tenant, and then they can share all those channels across their 30, 40, 50, 100 users. Being that we are true cloud, you can scale that up by an individual channel as their business grows up and grows down. So there's a huge amount of flexibility around that, and that it becomes a better cost point thing. Per user model works kind of better in that sub 20, 15, 20 handsets. Once you get over that, the per channel model is a far more competitive offering within the market. And it's a differentiator. There's no one else in the market I know that's currently positioning this way. So if you come up against anybody, you'll be a far more competitive offer than anybody else. Once you've chosen what pricing model, there's kind of three plans in either option. And this just is talking about, do you want included calls or not included calls? So it's fairly straightforward. You just choose what's right for your customer. How you actually order the product. So if you talk to your account manager, they'll obviously flick you through the Ingram SwitchConnect referral form. Simple as pumping your details, they'll get flicked across to us and Ingram, and then one of our channel team will be in contact to have a chat, explain the offering, step you through it, and help you go out and build a go-to-market strategy to go out and target your customers and have that conversation, and an education piece around letting you know how it all goes together from a technical point of view, help your support guys get up to speed on how to support it so that you can bring this out as an offering to your customers. So that's all I really want to cover off today, guys, just short and sweet. But by all means, if you've got any questions, flick it back through your Ingram account manager or contact SwitchConnect directly. More than happy to help you guys out. You're gonna flick it. I think we're going into a Q&A session next. There we go.
Thank you, Ralph. That was perfect. Oh, there we go.
Sorry. One too many clicks, sorry.
That's okay. That was very informative. Thank you very, very much, especially with your husky voice. We're just checking to see if there's any questions. I'm going to give you another maybe minute or so to type them into the box below. I really appreciated the time that Craig and Rowan put into sharing today the importance of quality voice over the internet for Teams and how to do that with direct routing. We've had a lot of interest. I'm not sure if Rowan mentioned there's proof of concepts available once you fill out the referral form and have a chat to Rowan. Really successful and positive feedback from those. Katie, any?
Doesn't feel that any questions have come through.
No, any questions? Craig, did you want to add anything? Did you want to pose an answer to a question that hasn't been asked, or just close the webinar for us?
Look, the only thing I would say is off the back of all the functionality that Rowan was talking about and plugging into Microsoft Teams, again, it's a great way to build a consultancy business. And again, having that conversation with your customer more and more about their network. It's no longer about internet connectivity. It's no longer about phone systems. It's really looking at their entire business and bringing that forward. And direct routing and Microsoft Teams is a really great way of doing that. And using NBN Business is the best way of powering that for your customer experience.
Yeah, agreed. Brilliant. Well, thank you. Llewellyn, thank you, Craig. Thank you, everyone who joined the call. We'll be sending out over email to everyone who registered the link to this session as well as a PDF of the slide deck for your reference. If you need anything, obviously reach out to us here at Ingram Micro. Thank you for your time, everyone. Have a wonderful Thursday.